If you've been living under a rock, TikTok is the latest and greatest social media trend. It's one of the most downloaded apps in America right now, and it's one of the most downloaded apps of the entire decade, which is pretty remarkable because it came out in 2016. I guess it was most popular last decade. New year. You make an ass of yourself for popularity, and in that way, it's not very different from most social media. But TikTok has one huge difference that sets it apart from your standard titans of online communication. TikTok is a Chinese-owned company, and if you don't know what that entails, well, buckle up, because Chinese tech is going to make the 2016 Russian hacking scandal look like a barking chihuahua next to a charging Bernese mountain dog. Before I lay out the panoply of issues with Chinese tech, I want to make something extremely clear. These things are not this thing. Chinese people are, unsurprisingly, regular people. Chinese companies aren't extremely different from companies from any other country in the world, with one exception. They have this monkey on their back. I need to say that I lived in China for over a year. I have no animus towards Chinese people or even Chinese tech. I don't really care where my social media apps come from, but the unfortunate reality is Chinese tech companies basically always have to be treated like another arm of the Chinese government. The CCP is the most evil organization on the earth right now, and I'm not exaggerating. But don't worry, we'll get to all of that in a minute. To lay out the groundwork, TikTok is owned by ByteDance, which is a pretty cool name for a tech company, let's be honest. It's a relatively young startup. It came around in 2012 and has largely been labeled as a unicorn, which I also had to look up. It's basically a small consumer-facing tech company that is valued at over $1 billion. They started off making algorithm-based news apps to deliver the consumer news that they would hopefully find relevant. Everyone loves algorithms, right? Oh crap, I forgot. I didn't make any popcorn. Anyway, ByteDance started an app called Douyin in China. If that logo looks familiar, who am I kidding? Douyin is the Chinese version of TikTok, and they are technically two different things. Technically. Laws in China concerning online privacy and data collection are basically the opposite of what you expect them to be. Meaning, all data gathered by any Chinese company or individual has to be turned over to the state upon request. All of it. There's no judiciary or legislature. There's no extra branches of government to run off to in China. The CCP is the government. So if the CCP says, hey, give us all the data on every single user you have, you just give them your data and you go home crying. Now, TikTok claims that the data gathered on its international users is all stored outside of Chinese servers, meaning technically it's outside of the grip of Beijing. So ByteDance actually cares about their international user base enough to sort of flip the bird to the Chinese government. Awesome. Are you kidding me? Do you really think they have a choice in this? In April of 2018, ByteDance had to take down an entire freaking app because it contained inappropriate jokes of a political nature. Jokes. The CCP took down an app for jokes. ByteDance's CEO then put out this weird statement where he blamed himself, then his company, and then the app for, and I quote, not being commensurate with core socialist values. Cool. Then, yeah, that's right, there's then. He promised to deepen his company's relationship with the CCP to ensure that everything that happened on their apps was okay by the party. You can't make this stuff up. So no, your TikTok data is not safe just because it's technically stored away from Beijing. Don't be naive. TikTok's privacy policy even leaves room for this sort of data transfer. They're not trying to fool you. Now, I think the way TikTok works without Chinese intervention is kind of bad. If you make a video on their platform, they own it, not you. That's one of the reasons I refuse to use it. I think they're pretty evil. And that's before you realize that everything you put on TikTok is going into a Chinese database somewhere, along with your location, and probably your internet history too. God only knows. And that is exactly why the US military banned TikTok on all military-issued devices. Because apparently that was a problem. I didn't even know this, but apparently enough people in the military were making these cringy-ass videos that the government decided they had to step in. What? What are you doing, people? Apparently our bravest and best are out there making TikToks. I have no idea why. Popcorn's burned. I'd like to thank today's sponsor for this video. Following TikTok's acquisition of Musical.ly, new legislation was actually introduced to try and prevent American user data from slipping into Beijing, but politicians are all slow and stupid. They still think the internet is a series of tubes. So for them to be aware enough that this is a problem alarms me a lot more. TikTok has basically been deemed a Huawei level threat. If you don't know Huawei, they make cell phones, mostly using stolen patents that they get away with by fudging international trade laws. And their stuff's pretty good. I'm not gonna shame them for that, even though they probably stole it. But anyway, Huawei has been caught red-handed skimming data from Western defense networks, mostly in Eastern Europe, and hacking into the African Union. China really wants to step into Africa and start telling people what to do. Are you starting to get it? The CCP owns all of the tech companies that have even a modest reach into the outside world. Tech is the real foreign arm of Beijing. And that's not me saying it. That's Xi Jinping, you know, Winnie the Pooh, the current chairman of the Communist Party, the guy who just wrote himself into their constitution. He's the one who's saying it. But I hear what you're saying. I do. I hear what you're saying. Those are all military threats. Sure, they're kind of spooky, but they don't really affect me, you know. I'm just singing along to Cardi B or whatever kids actually like on TikTok. If you're not in the military, do you really care if some Chinese censor gets to gaze lovingly into your gorgeous face as you sing lyrics from Taylor Swift's last album? Not Lover. I haven't heard that one yet. I'm talking about the bad one. I didn't like that one. Let's play a little game, huh? Let's play make believe. Let's say that for some reason. Can't eat popcorn today. Let's say that for some reason. In about 6 months, you know, just a random time, political content starts getting really popular on TikTok. Let's say it's not very obvious. Let's say it starts off with, you know, 1 in every 10 videos. It's popular. Has a sort of fuck politician you like message. Doesn't seem so bad, right? Almost seems natural. Users start to catch on. They start making more politically driven content because they know it will trend. It will get them views. Now let's say this content just gets more and more prevalent as November approaches. Not that anything's happening in November 2020, right? Let's say that the pissant performance of Russian memes on Facebook is dwarfed by one of the most popular apps of the last decade that is aimed primarily at children. Let's say we see a propaganda rollout from a foreign government the likes of which has never been seen in the history of the world. Do I really need to keep going? Do you get it? ByteDance's specialty was algorithmic data. One of the reasons TikTok was on track to surpass Musical.ly anyway is because it was actually better. It was better at giving you content you wanted. The algorithm is what they do best, my guy. Give them a little pressure from the CCP, you know, the people who are putting a gun to their head, and they won't have the option of leaving people alone. You know what? Screw worst case scenarios. Screw apocalyptic levels of foreign propaganda. One of the grossest facts of business in China is that once a company reaches a certain size, party members have to be put in positions of power. So shares of publicly traded Chinese companies will be bought or created to give the CCP more decision-making authority in companies, and here's the really bad part, profit motive. This is by far the worst part for me to say out loud because I really don't want it to be true. When Chinese tech companies like Huawei and ByteDance make money, the CCP makes money too. The CCP, which has actual concentration camps in China. The CCP, which is still brutalizing the people of Hong Kong. The CCP, whose political enemies are only good at one thing: disappearing. I mean, we all saw the John Oliver bit. They're trying to end the Dalai Lama, people. I don't like saying stuff like that because it just shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't matter that TikTok is a Chinese company. I shouldn't give a crap. If TikTok really is a good app that entertains a lot of people relatively easily, I don't care who the money goes to. I sort of think the creator should be able to profit off that, regardless of where he's from. I like global markets. Reality just isn't that kind. I actually feel bad for Chinese tech companies, to a certain extent, because it's clear that a lot of them don't want to cooperate with the CCP. Because remember, the people who hate this the most are these. A good example of this is Didi. Didi is the Chinese equivalent of Uber, and they openly defied Beijing's orders for data for months. Until they didn't. Because they couldn't do it forever. ByteDance itself has actually proven pretty reluctant to work with the CCP, but they don't really have a choice, as we've already said. So any instead of, the bottom line is TikTok not only uses predatory business practices, they just can't be trusted with anyone's data, or even anyone's attention. I didn't even mention that the FTC also fined TikTok for violating COPPA. Remember the big YouTube thing? Yeah, TikTok got hit with that too. So should you stop using TikTok? Yeah, probably. Will you? I don't think so. Does that even matter in the end? I don't really know. I don't want to start some big boycott of TikTok. I just know that most people aren't aware of how this works. They're not aware of how insidious the government's presence is in Chinese tech firms. And I know most people aren't aware of how much data TikTok actually collects, which is a metric fuckload. And they don't know where that data is going. Of course, most people probably just don't care anymore. Again, the only truly evil actor here is the CCP. I still don't like the way TikTok runs their shit, but they're not the big bad guy. And try to remember that most Chinese people hate the CCP too. And for the love of God, if you want to make dumb, short, unfunny videos for the possibility of attention, YouTube is still right here. Not that they're not evil. Shit. And if you want to watch dumb, sort of short videos featuring a guy with colored hair talking about various things and doing even more various things, subscribe. My channel's pretty new, but I've got a lot of stuff I'm working on, and most of the stuff I'm working on isn't as stressful or serious as this, so maybe we'll actually have some fun. But even if you don't subscribe, thanks for watching. Now go out there and take care of yourself. And in the words of Cody Ko, fuck TikTok, 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 fuck TikTok. And we cut.